That's disgusting. It doesn't matter. Check out the yummy carpet water. Nope, it's still coming in at the front. I hate water leaks. Find one way to keep the water out. It's usually the hat we put on a Lanchester. But it covers that leaking light luster there. And I know it works at the front. This covers up where the windscreen is. Confirms the theory about where the water's getting in. There is nothing in there at all. Well, as you can see, it's still got a bit of water in it, but the cover's mostly done its job. One of the reasons there's water in it is we had Storm Bella. But the front's nice and dry, there's no water in here, so that's good. And when we had the storm, let's see which corner it is. Here we go. When we had the storm, it pulled the stitching out on one corner of the cover and pulled the cover off. So, quickly ran that back up with the sewing machine. I was lucky it didn't tear the cover. Today I've got some new things arriving. One of which is this stuff, which is very, very good. This will seal up the windscreen. Only problem is our household trigger gun thing is on the small side, so I've had to trim the end off, but that's fine. You can see what I took off. So I'm going to dry everything out and then crack on with that. So as you saw, it's a bit of a messy job putting the Arbomast in, but it's nice stuff to work with and it is easy to clean up. I'm leaving the mess that you can see here just while it cures, and then when that's all dried up I can pop the trim back in. The main point of ingress was just there, so hopefully that's resolved. And there was very little in that void. I'm wondering if it was just the bond has just failed on there. Next job is that rear light cluster, because that's letting a lot of water in. And for that we have this stuff, which is by that company. This is Butyl Tape, which you tend to use on caravans to bond panels, keep water out. It's nice and flexible, and I'm hoping that will cure the water ingress, but we'll see. So the theory with putting this tape in is like we did with the cut down yoga mat. You peel off a length of the stuff and then you squidge it in this channel here. I'm going to go around it twice and then it should squash and deform to the panel. I hope. We shall see. This is a lot easier to do off camera, so that's what I'm going to do. As you can see, once you squidge it in, it's like plasticine really. That's my join there, so when I go around with the next one, I'm going to make the join on this corner instead, and that means that the top edge is going to just be a solid piece, because it's this top edge that's leaking worst, and it's leaking the worst on this corner here. It seems to need more material, and the seal choices I've had haven't worked, so we'll do another round and then we'll see how that fits. There we go, 2 rounds, and the overlap is in different places so the water shouldn't get through. I still have way more of this tape than I need, and that was the smallest quantity I could buy. I think you're supposed to use it on much bigger things. Hopefully that's going to squash down and deform and seal up. Well, that's in place, and there's definitely no gap now. The only thing is, I think that seal might be a little bit too thick. Because when you screw it in, normally that far one, this one here, there's quite a bit of thread sticking out, and there isn't now. Also, that one sticks out by that much, and when you go over to the other light cluster, you can see it's fairly flush at the top there. I don't know, I think I'm going to leave it for now, and if it does end up being a problem I can take it apart and redo it. But I think I just want the water to stay out of the car at this point. I don't think a little grey line's a problem. Leak inspection time again. Water has been getting in, that's the inside of the rear glass. But it's not getting in where it was before. I noticed this time it's getting past this seal, which is the tailgate seal. And you can see there where it's wet, just these darker patches. It's overflowing the seal and collecting on this lip. And then overflowing there and collecting down here. So that just means the water's found another way to get in. You can see as well this corner here, there's a little hole there. It's to let air out when you shut the tailgate, and there's water overflowing there as well, so I suspect this tailgate seal needs replacing. which is hardly surprising. I mean, that's what they're like. It's doing the same thing here. It looks like you have the drain holes on the tailgate, and it looks like it's draining onto the seal, and then the seal isn't pushing it outside the car, it's pushing it inside, which isn't ideal. Not an awful lot I can do about that. It did rain last night, so let's see if the windscreen's sealed up. Yes, it did. There's been no cover on the car overnight, and it is completely dry in here, which is fantastic. There's no washer on the inside of that seam, which is great. It's just on the outside where it should be. Yeah, I'm happy. That's one resolved. So it's just the one at the back, which might just mean I need a generic seal to replace that. After a bit of thinking on the tailgate seal, I realised there's another way the water can be getting in, which is this trim panel on the inside of the tailgate. I noticed with the water, a lot of the time, you were seeing some along this edge and some along this piece. Now, it could still be coming in like I thought it was, but it might be coming in through the wiper spindle on the other side of this. And if it is, popping this off should tell me. I've also lost my trim clip remover, so I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way, which I don't like doing, but oh well. That's fine where these are all pinged off. There we go. Oh yeah. Bring you down. You can see on the back of this panel there's quite a bit of water, so maybe it is coming in through here instead. Especially there, look. That's promising. When you're up in this piece, there's the wiper motor. And that part looks fairly dry. There's quite a bit of condensation in here. It says water's getting trapped in there somewhere. And there's a little telltale from underneath the wiper spindle. So, one thing I can do is, there's no moisture membrane on there, so I'm going to make one and then put the trim back on, and that should hopefully encourage the water to stay in the boot and then drain out past the seal, because it might be just draining into the boot. Making a moisture membrane is fairly easy. There's lots of ways you can do it, but this is the quick and dirty way. First thing you'll want is a bin bag. The reason I use these, they're cheap and plentiful, and you need to chop off the bottom, which then means you can actually fold the plastic out flat. This one has wiggly handles on the top, so chop those off too. And then just go down one of the fold lines, doesn't matter which one. It's quite cold today, even though I'll admit it's cold. Interested in that. End up with a big sheet of plastic, which Yeah, looks like I've caught the middle bit, but never mind, we don't need much. The next thing is you need to figure out how much of that you need to do the tailgate. This is much easier to show on a door than it is on a tailgate. So I'm just going to trim this up and then we'll come back when I've done that. It's a bit too cold for doing this really. The tape is not great. I'd normally use double-sided carpet tape. It's a bit easier to use than this. But that will be good enough. It'll encourage the water to go inside the tailgate rather than inside the boot. And once the trim's on, then that will hold everything in properly. Speaking of, I found almost all the trim clips. I just have lost one. It'll turn up. So let's get the trim board put back in. One trim board back in. I had forgotten one of the quirks with Maestros is you get these little vents in the back panel, and you can see it's not the tidiest job. Can't really feel my fingers, so proof of concept on this one, let's call it that. So that's the only clip I'm missing. I think I've got a spare one actually. On the original trim board there are those foam strips. I think they're supposed to offer a seal, so if this doesn't work I can always just use the butyl tape that I had. It'll do the same job. Now, the places it might be coming in through. It might be coming in through this piece here. There's no signs of staining or rust on the outside, so I don't think it's that. The other place it could be coming in is this seal. Now, on the inside, there is some surface rust on the other side of this section, and you can just see there's a bit of rust under the seam there, so it could be that. This is a problem with water leaks, you never know where they are until you cure them. But, I mean, everything's dry inside today, so that's good. And the only water that's been appearing has been on this lip here. And the only way really for that to get in is through the tailgate, so that's probably what's causing it. Well, there's a first. It rained a lot last night and the car isn't fogged up. So let's have a look and see what's going on in the boot. Started off so well. How is all that getting in? Because that's a lot of water. That's how that's all getting in. We've had enough that you can see that the water's coming out from behind this trim panel. So I'm pretty sure that means my water ingress is through the tailgate rather than through anything else. And you can also see up here where it's getting stuck against the seal and then overflowing into the boot. So I'll get that dried out, now I'll get the Arbomast and get this sealed up, and hopefully that'll fix it. Let's have a look at the front, see if the front's any better. And the front's not completely sealed, look, that's still leaking from somewhere. This is annoying. With the panel off, you can see my reflection in it. That's how much water's on the back of this panel. That could be condensation, but it's probably actually leaking past the moisture membrane I put in. You can see it's all wet on there as well. So I'm going to pop this off, I'm going to replace it with butyl tape and seal this panel up, because you can see on here there's these what used to be foam tape and those seal against the tailgate, so I'm going to replace that with butyl tape. Hopefully that will seal better, because I think this panel serves as a moisture membrane, and it has these vents in them, which I think is for letting any kind of condensation out. I'm not sure, but that seems sensible. So this moisture membrane idea didn't work, but that's okay. You don't know until you try. Yeah, look, there's water inside here. Now, the only way for that water to get in is if it's come through the tailgate, and it's not got any further than the moisture membrane, so the water you see up here, that must have come from the glass. There's no other way for it to get in here, so there's a little bit of surface rust up there, so it's probably the seal on the glass. We'll seal that up. I'm going to go around the windscreen a bit more to try and seal up the front, and yeah, see how we go. Short while later, I've got that all done with new tape. It's just got the protective paper on at the moment, and I've left gaps where the trim bits go, so I'm going to put that back on, see how we go. Rain is really, really good for finding water leaks. It's useless for solving them, so I just got everything dried off ready for the Arbomast, and it started raining. So that's going to have to wait probably until tomorrow with this weather. The other problem I had was the butyl tape I used is actually quite thick, so I had to take it off, stretch it thinner, and then reapply. But that's now on, and it bonds very, very well. Hopefully that will at least help. And then I've just got to wait for things to dry out again. I tell you, Kent seems to have two weather stages. It's either raining or it's so hot you can't touch anything. And it's not one of the things I like about this area, but I wouldn't be British if I wasn't complaining about the weather, would I? Weather's been very hit and miss today. I've slowed down how much is coming in since I sealed up that panel, and today I've got as much sealant as I can get in between rain showers, so all this bottom edge, that's all the excess that's coming out. And since I knew it was leaking at the front, I noticed there was a little bit of lift on that bottom corner, so put some more in there. Hopefully that's enough to fix it. I do wish it had stopped raining. The rain stopped finally. I went out and got some wiper blades. The old ones were shot. So when you've got excess of this Arbomast, the easiest way to deal with it is when it's still wet. This is just an old soldering packet. It's a nice soft flexible plastic, so you can just slide it along. It doesn't damage the paint, and the Arbomast does tend to stick to itself. You can scoop it all up. My one concern when I did this was it was raining when I was trying to do it, so I'm hoping there isn't water trapped in here. But if you squidge down the seal, you see there's a bit of Arbomast easing out there. Easing. This is where I think the water's getting in, because yeah, look, you can see it bubbling there. So there is water underneath that bit of the seal, and I think what's happening is it's getting in the tailgate and overflowing into the boot, because the signs that it's not coming in through the other bits I've sealed up, it's now coming straight through the boot lid, so I'm pretty sure that's the problem. Yeah. I'm going to have to reseal this, I think. Looks like rain's got in. We'll see. It's squidging quite a bit out actually. That's a nice fresh bead of Arbomast put in all the way along. As you go, you sort of squidge it in, wait for it to start to ooze out, and then move along until you've got the whole thing. So next I'm going to just scrape off this excess, and hopefully that will seal. I can't lift it on the glass side, so I'm hoping any water that does get in here doesn't really go inside the car, but we'll see. The seal doesn't seem to be as loose on the rest of the tailgate, it just seems to be this bottom edge for some reason. I've just stuck my finger in it. But yeah, I'll scrape that off and I'll just double check the front and redo anything on the front that needs doing. Just finished, cleaned up, at least first stage. You don't want to clean up too much because otherwise the seal breaks, and you just wipe this excess off later. There was a bit on the front from about here down to the bottom. It just lifted a bit, so I filled that in. That might be where the water's getting in the front, I'm not sure. Of course it's raining again. The other thing I treated the car to were some new wiper blades, because driving in the rain with juddering blades is really annoying. Yeah, these are the old ones. I don't think the front ones were that old, but they were juddering and they weren't good. This one's the back one. Nobody ever does the back one. They're all the same size, and Sunday during lockdown you don't get a lot of choice, so it was Halfords and I forked out for those, which is more than I would normally pay for wipers, so they better be good. We'll just have to wait and see if this all fills up again, because you can see on the tailgate this is where it's coming in and it's getting past this trim. It's like the trim overflows and then it goes in the boot, so it doesn't really matter what that seal does, how good or bad it is, because the water's getting in behind it. This is just going to be one of those jobs. The rain's kind of helping, but I kind of wish it would stop.